What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast. It's been a few weeks, but we're back. I'm your host, owner and founder of Vicktory Life, Dwight Vick. And I'm also here with my longtime friend and brother, my guy down in the 804, co-host, Danny Nokes. How you doing, D?
I'm good, bro. I'm happy to be here with you, talking a little Hokies football, talking about a couple more wins. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Listen, it's been good. I feel like we played a part in that. Our last episode got a lot of attention. We had three legends on, and Ty Washington, Corey Moore, and Sharon Stith. Three legends, and they did not hold back. But it was out of love for a program that we all desperately care about and deeply care about, and we want to see do well. And they responded with a very tough effort against Miami. Um, got down, then went up 24-14. Then we all know what happened in the fourth quarter. Was it a catch? No, it's a catch. It is what it is. I love what Price said. He told the parents, the players, and everybody to stop talking about it and to move on. Since then, they've had a bye week and they've gotten two back-to-back wins against Boston College and Stanford. So very happy about that. It's always good to get a winning streak versus a losing streak.
Yeah, I was actually really happy and a little bit surprised, buddy, with the way that they bounced back really solid against Stanford after that loss to Miami. I know the rest of Hokie Nation share these sentiments. I was just absolutely floored at the end of that Miami game that they pulled the Danny Cole card yet again, right? I mean, you thought that there was no way that they were going to overturn that call. There was absolutely no video evidence, and I think most Tech fans would admit that if the call on the field was an incomplete pass, it would have been virtually impossible to overturn it to a completed pass, too. But the call on the field was a touchdown and it was a completed pass, and there was very clearly no evidence. And you could see it in the way that the ACC backpedaled and had no real explanation for why the call was changed, other than they need a team from the ACC in the top 10.
Ah.
That's what it all comes down to, man. Miami
you know,
had it. Miami was on the ropes the very next week too.
I know I fell asleep on that game. I went to bed. Cal was destroying them. I said, well,
Same.
I said, yeah, Cal, you got it. Good job. I'm not a hater, but like, congratulations to you, new member of the ACC. Then I
Mhm.
woke up. I just woke up. I do that on Saturdays. And I woke up. I said, what's the score? And I saw that Miami came back and won 39-38. And I'm like, you know what? How does that happen? So I literally watched the highlights on my phone and I watched some of it again, the entire game. I'm like, I got to give Miami credit, man. And then again, it was a call in that game fans were talking about where they didn't review a roughing or something. I don't remember. I'm sure somebody in the comments will correct me, but it was something with a call. And then of course we know what happened last weekend against Louisville. They jumped on Louisville. It was tied, and then of course it was a fumble or not fumble. I mean,
Another.
Miami's got to be lucky. What are you gonna say, D? What are you gonna
I was
say?
gonna say it was another controversial call that they got the benefit on.
Yeah,
Three. That's
yeah,
three.
yeah. I mean, it is one of those things, man, where Miami championship teams know how to win. Here's my take on it, man.
Yeah.
If I'm a tech guy and I'm in that locker room, I am going to basically focus on every game week by week with a chance to get my lick back, to get my bike back,
Mm.
to basically avenge a loss if it is Miami. Now, the one thing about it is you can't assume anything. Georgia Tech is a quality team. You got to go to Syracuse, where Virginia Tech has only won one time with my cousin leading the way. You just can't assume anything. You can't assume that you're going to go in there and win that game. Every game this week, next week, and moving forward is a playoff game, a must win. I don't really like to say must win, but it is. But the only way, if you want to get Miami back and get a chance to avenge that loss, is to show up again. Virginia Tech historically has done that. They did it against Boston College in a similar situation when they led 10-0, the Matt Ryan rain game when they led 10-0 and they were in
Mhm.
complete control of that game. That game wasn't so much as a shock because they lost that game 14-10. I remember watching that game, living in Manassas at the time. I was living in the townhouse and I was watching that game. I said, Virginia Tech needs to get more points. And of course, Matt Ryan came back and Tech fans and BC fans remember Coach Jags, who recruited me, by the way, who came from ECU, was on the field doing like this, stomping like that when Matt Ryan threw that touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
But Tech got their lick back and won by 2 scores, maybe 3 scores. I know they won convincingly in the ACC championship game that same season. But
Mhm.
Virginia Tech has to focus on Georgia Tech. Because we got some guests coming in today, before we talk a little bit more about Tech and ACC football, I got to tell you, I got to give you this little clap, man. There are 3 people I think about when it comes to the Washington Commanders. You, my father, and my father-in-law. All 3 of y'all have stood the test of time while that bandwagon was getting repairs and spare tires put on, and everybody was talking about I'm never going to mess with them. You guys, Snyder, no Snyder, have stayed the course. Every time I see Washington win, I'm like, man, I'm so happy for D. Because, for people watching this on our YouTube channel, they've seen you even when you did the Danny Nokes with me and Mike on the Vic 757 show. People talk about your man cave, and that's all DC sports.
And
The
Tech.
Caps with and Tech, of course, of
Yeah.
course, of
Yeah.
course. But I mean, you keep it real. You're a Northern Virginia guy. Went to Chantilly High School, so you have held strong with the Nats and the Caps and the Commanders. So anyway, I'm happy. Slow clap. There's
Thank you,
still a lot
bro.
of football left to be played, but
Yeah.
I did tell my father-in-law this summer. I told him in April when they drafted him. I said, "Yo, Daniels is the real deal." I said, "I'm not really high on that kid in Chicago. He's
Mhm.
good. Caleb is nice, but I'm not surprised he's doing that for Washington. He looks like the truth."
Yeah, man. I tell you what, he gave us all a heart attack last weekend going down in the Carolina game, though. And hopefully this rib injury doesn't keep him out for too long. But boy, has he been a lightning rod. I mean, goodness gracious, the energy that he has brought to DC and to that team, you can't help but compare it to RG3 in 2012, man. There's so many things, and they stacked their statistics up against one another, and they're almost identical. Jaden has outplayed him a little bit, by the way, in those
Yeah,
first couple of games of his career, which is really impressive. But my gosh, he has really proven to be an incredible professional much earlier than even I think the most optimistic people thought that he would be, especially when you consider the fact that the Commanders don't really have a lot of weapons on the outside, right? I mean, Terry is a freak when it comes to making contested catches and whatnot. He doesn't always get a ton of separation, but my gosh, he is as reliable as they come. But when you start to go down their depth chart, it's not like they're stacked at wide receiver and bringing in Zach Ertz this year at tight end has really helped a lot. And man, B Rob, I love B Rob. Brian Robinson Jr. was an amazing comeback story last year. But now they've added Eckler to the fold, and even Jeremy
mm,
McNichols. Jeremy
McNichols.
McNichols has really proven to be an effective guy in that offense. And of course, all of that is being brought together by the offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury. So it's come together quicker than I thought it would. I'm always cautiously optimistic with my teams. I think you're the same way, man, because you've been watching them for long enough to know that it could all change in an instant.
I may, speaking of that bandwagon, I may see if they got room, even though I jumped off, man, because I couldn't take Snyder. It was the dysfunction. It just feels good now to see a team, an organization, very similar to our alma mater,
Yes.
honor the alumni,
Hmm.
honor the greats, take care of the fans, not abusing their loyalty. Very similar to how Virginia Tech now is bringing back all the guys that played with me, before me, after me, and making sure the fans are connected, the alumni is connected. It's just really cool to see Daryl Green get recognized. When I just posted about him on my Facebook page, and then I posted a picture of the posse. This is
Oh
back when
yeah.
I had hair, and I used to cheer for Ricky Sanders, Gary Clark, and Art Monk. I'm happy for you guys. Again, I'm keeping it real on this show. I know we talking college sports and a lot of things, but this is our show. We can talk about whatever except politics. We're not doing that. But
No, no,
with
yeah.
that being said, man, I'm very happy to see the legends get the love. I mean, it was really great to see. And you're from up here, but I'm living up here. I've been living up here in Northern Virginia for 25 years, and there's been moments, as you mentioned, with RG3 and whatnot. Here's my thing. I loved RG3's game, and they ran an offense for him with the RPOs and the Shanahans and all of that. It worked great. It didn't end well. There's a lot of different stories that always come out about how it was handled. I think everybody was at fault. I think
Yes.
RG3 was a little bit young and immature in what he wanted and
Hmm.
how he handled things. He rushed
Hmm.
back from that injury to face my cousin on that Monday night game. But then at the same time, there was a disconnect between personnel and what they had in store and how they handled the injury and what they did with him. I think at the end of the day, man, Daniels can you can learn from that. You can learn from that entire situation. I think they will. There's no again, I don't know. I'm hearing day to day up here. We both know about 1067 The Fan.
Yep.
I'm just happy that there's a franchise quarterback with a vision and goal in place to take care of him and get some people around him. Terry McLaurin, I had him in fantasy last year, and I loved him the year before because he always caught touchdowns. And last year, it was hit or miss.
Yep.
Now, I wish I got him because every time I look, he's catching all these clutch passes. So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
good. It looks like right now it's coming down to them and Philly. I don't feel bad that the Cowboys are disarray. If there's one thing that makes me feel good, sorry if we have anybody that supports us that are Cowboy fans, I will never feel bad when they lose.
No, no, not as long as Jerry Jones owns that team. You see Jerry Jones talking smack to those radio hosts, telling them that he's going to get somebody else to ask the questions. I think it was last week. He was literally
Yo,
threatening their jobs as if he paid him,
yo,
which he doesn't.
Yo, that was insane. They handled it well, man. But
They did.
interesting you said that, D, because check it. I don't think there's no coincidence where you had a narcissistic, controlling owner in Washington step down. There was some controversy, some other stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, now you have a new ownership group, including Magic Johnson, a new management group. And then all of a sudden, they're drafting better. The environment's better. They're not charging $30 to catch a shuttle from the grass to the parking lot.
Right.
It's just a lot of things. Now, in the same division, you have a long-term owner, once a great owner, kind of feeling himself a little delusional about what he sees. They didn't do anything in free agency. They're the ones now with an uncertainty because of from the top to the bottom, they look a little bit in disarray. So I just would follow Washington's lead, man. It always starts with ownership, man. You look at the Steelers, you look at a lot of teams, even in college and high school sports, man, it always starts at the top, man. So
Yeah.
glad Washington is balling right now.
Yeah.
Glad. I mean, again, it's good to see, even if you don't like Washington. I know the Giants and the Eagles probably don't like it as much. But again, look at the Giants. You gave away Saquon Barkley for a blow pop and some Skittles.
Just
and
fools, man. Fools.
look, you and I covered Daniel Jones in the ACC.
I know. I
What are
know.
y'all? What him and Trubisky? I'm like, what are y'all looking at? What are
Because
y'all looking at?
it was that Cutcliffe effect. Remember, Dwight? Because
Yes, it has to be.
Cutcliffe, of course, coached Peyton Manning, right? And he's supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. Daniel Jones was spoken very highly of in at the end of David Cutcliffe's career. So they figured, oh yeah, this guy might be. And to Daniel Jones isn't the biggest issue on that team, right? I don't think at least that the biggest issue is that they're just giving away players like Saquon. You know what I mean? I mean,
Crazy.
and they had that Hard Knocks clip too where Mara, the owner, is talking about how he was going to have a hard time sleeping if Saquon went to Philly. You didn't have to let him go to Philly. You didn't have to. You took the best deal and just sent him off. I mean, it is amazing too that the Eagles ripped Saquon from New York, a division rival like that, and obviously 5 years ago the Phillies did the same thing with Harper, and
yeah,
he's won MVP since then. So
yeah, yeah,
they've gotten lucky in that regard.
yeah. Well, look, Danny, that's a great segue because speaking of MVPs, we got two that's joining us right now. Two of my favorite people. I mean, this is great. This is great for us and great for me. We're welcome to the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast, Hall of Fame journalist, Hall of Fame guy, my guy David Till, who's a legend. If you see any documentary about anybody from Virginia, college, high school, pro, Tidewater, you're gonna see David in that clip talking about Iverson and Tyrod, my cousin, and of course my guy Mike Barber. I've been on a few of his features. Big time writer, a guy I got a lot of love and respect for. Mike, David, thank you. Welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you guys for jumping on, man.
Thanks for having us, Dwight.
Yeah, happy
Yeah,
to be here.
man. No, I told you, Mike, when I tweeted you, I said I'm gonna get you guys on because number one, Danny gets you guys with a slow clap. I'm gonna add that because I'm just speaking on behalf of a lot of fans. I know both y'all sometimes the reaction is kind of weird because you have always a fan base or a group of people who love what you say and predict, and you have another group who like, why do you write that? But either way, we pay attention to what you do. So I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people. I appreciate you both. David, I mean, it feels weird because you grew up covering me, my family. I mean, he was part of the Daily Press back when I used to run home and see on Saturday morning after Hampton High won if I was in the paper. He didn't cover all my games, but he was there at some of the most significant events. And you were featured on my Legacy Spotlight during the COVID years when I first started the Vicktory Life movement. So, Mike, David, again, thank you both, man. We wanted you to jump on. We wanted to get you on because, Danny and I, when I told him who was coming on, he was excited like myself. I wanted to get your insight before we talk tech and ACC. I wanted to talk about a guy I've always admired from afar, and that's UVA's coach Tony Bennett. I'm a Hokie, but I'm Mike. You and I talked about this when I've had been in your features. I love sports. I love players. I don't care where you play. UVA, Maryland, Duke, Norfolk State. I feel like Tony Bennett is a class act. I thought what he did for UVA was remarkable. I've said with one of my best friends, Ahmad Hawkins, that if UVA ever offers my son in basketball, you would see me screaming "Wahoo Wah" because I didn't care. But
Careful, Dwight.
I
Careful,
know.
buddy.
I'm just saying. Listen, that's basketball. That's a different sport.
I know.
But David, I want to get you first, and then Mike, your thoughts, man. You both are kind of behind the scenes, so y'all may see certain things building or coming. David, was that a surprise to you when that was announced and it hit the Twitter sphere and started to hit ESPN and all the media outlets? Were you aware that was coming, or was it a surprise to you?
Dwight, I think your description is apt when you talk about things building, because this has been building for Tony Bennett for multiple years since the landscape of major college sports started to shift dramatically, not only with athlete compensation, I won't call it NIL because that's not what it is anymore, and
Mm,
also the transfer portal. He has expressed his concerns repeatedly. Now, for all of us who thought that this moment was possible, I still believe the timing surprised most, if not everyone, simply because it came so close to the start of the season.
mm, yeah. Mike, what about you? Um, Same thoughts?
Yeah, I think David's right. Certainly that we knew Tony had some growing frustration with the way things were going. I talked to a former assistant of his today who told me, hey, that 2019 national championship was like the last old-fashioned national championship because the next year was COVID. Then we had transfer
Mm,
portal. And he said Tony Bennett won the last traditional college basketball national championship. Could he have won more the new way? Probably. The guy's a really good basketball coach. You alluded to in the opening, a really good person. But it's there's too much of the other stuff for him to do, for him to want to do it. That's really what it came down to, right? He even said in his presser, hey, I've been having my assistants take a lot of this. He didn't say garbage, but he meant garbage, garbage off my plate. And he felt guilty about that. And he just felt like the parts of his job that weren't coaching basketball were getting bigger and bigger, and that's not the part he lived for.
wow. Danny, I know you got a question, but Mike, you mentioned garbage. You guys both cover some big events in college sports, specifically basketball and football. Um, when you look at it, just curiosity, Mike and then David, when you look at college basketball, you hear so many people talking heads about the state of the game. The one and dones were a big hot topic. Now it's NIL. And, I was on a Twitter space after a game and I heard some Tech fans saying, hey, listen, we've invested too much money in this offense for certain guys not to be performing at a level. And I'm like, wow, this sounds like 106.7 The Fan where Danny used to be at, like investing Do you think, Mike, and then you, David, do you think are we in a bad place or is it a gray area? I mean, I value your opinion. What are you thinking?
I think we are in a bad place, but I think we're on our way to a place that's going to be fine.
Okay.
I think what got Tony Bennett is he got swept up in this gray area, in this middle area. Like, I think when we get to a point where we're closer to professional sports and we have collective bargaining and you have the option of signing a guy to a 3-year deal, I think a guy like Tony Bennett would thrive in that system. The problem is we're not quite there. And the NCAA had to be reluctantly dragged to this point, and everybody's kind of confused and dragging their feet getting to the next point. It's not going to be that long. And we're going to get to a point that is a pro or semi-pro model. And I think it's going to be great. Players are going to get paid. Coaches are going to know what their roster look like. The problem is this little in-between space where it's really hard to navigate. And I think Tony looked at it and said, hey, this isn't a couple of rough months or a rough year. We may be in this mess for a while, and that's what I think led him to really step away from it.
And David,
yeah, Mike, I think you're correct in that this interim space really is kind of indefinite because we don't know if Congress will intervene. We don't know what exactly the House settlement will look like, and that's only for a 10-year period. There will likely be legal challenges to the House settlement. So it's just one litigation after another, more uncertainty piled atop the current uncertainty. And it's just very difficult for everyone to navigate. And right now, the athletes have not some of the power, all of the power. They are free agents, not on an annual basis. Guys, they can be free agents on a monthly basis. Dwight,
Yeah.
think about this. When you were playing at Tech, can you imagine a guy transferring into Tech for spring ball and then transferring out after spring ball because he just didn't like the vibe and he was going somewhere else?
That's
How many times
crazy.
did you read about that this offseason?
It's happening.
You had an
Yeah.
undefeated team whose quarterback, after 4 games, right, said he didn't get what he had been promised, and he essentially quit. What we would call it in the NFL is a holdout, right?
Yeah.
You were promised one thing, you didn't get it, so now you're holding out. Well, in college, that's almost here. And David's right. It's the question is there a light at the end of the tunnel, or is this disaster that they have right now on their hands? It feels indefinite. And I think that's why people like Tony Bennett are saying, hey, I'm going to step aside because I don't see this getting better, maybe even before it gets worse.
It really does have that feeling, guys. And I think most of us feel that there has to be some guardrails put up at some point around some of what the players are able to do, right? I don't think anyone would disagree that the players deserve to be compensated, but how easily they're able to move between schools and whatnot has just gotten a little bit out of hand. But David, I want to come to you for one, because I'm curious as to what you think the landscape of the ACC and really college basketball as a whole looks like now with someone like Tony Bennett now no longer coaching in the game. Because in the last several years, obviously, we've seen Coach K retire. We've seen Jim Boeheim retire. A couple years ago, Roy Williams retired. And now Tony Bennett's retired. That's a lot of national championships and a lot of national champion head coaches that are no longer in the game, and all pretty different. Well, at least one of them was different circumstances, because Coach K, Roy, and Jim Boeheim had very long careers, longer than Tony. But how do you think
Wright.
And Jay Wright is another big one. I was trying to keep it in the ACC, but that's a great example, Dwight, because he obviously has national champions too. So, David, what do you think about the landscape of the ACC, what it looks like now?
Danny, this will be the first season since 1981-82 that the ACC does not have a head coach who has won a national championship.
Whoa, nugget right here. That's going to be a clip. That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, that was the year that Dean Smith and Carolina won its first national title under Dean Smith. And then every season since, at least one, often multiple head coaches had national championships, because immediately the season after Dean, Coach Valvano at NC State. So just like that, you had 2 of the 8 coaches in the league were national champions. And then as recently as a couple of years ago, 4 of the 15 ACC head coaches had won national championships, as Danny was talking about. Boeheim, Roy, Coach K, and Tony Bennett.
Yeah, you know what's wild when you think about it. I went down to ACC football media days. I didn't go to basketball this year, but I had a talk with Jim Phillips about kind of Tony Bennett's place with all those names that Danny just mentioned being gone. And Jim said, Tony needs to be kind of the guy for the ACC. And he said Tony had done a lot of that behind the scenes, right? In terms of with the other coaches and getting together and getting on the same page and pushing important ideas. But he said, we need somebody like Tony Bennett, who's got maybe the most credibility in the league. And certainly you got Leonard Hamilton and Jim Larinaga and some other good coaches still. But Tony's accomplishments, he needs to be the guy out in front as, quote unquote, the face of the ACC, as much as that's not really a role Tony would have relished. So I think for the league, he's a big loss in that regard because he was the guy they were kind of looking towards.
Man, I appreciate you both with that because I never looked at it from that way, especially with no national championship experience. One last question to you both before we get back into football. Danny talked about the landscape of the ACC and just the face of it. When you look at college basketball, I know we're still in the heart of football. There's a 12-team playoff. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But when you talk about like teams, you look around, I'm just kind of, getting kind of a preview, some insight from you both. David, you can go first. Which teams should we be looking out for as, this thing gets started here pretty soon? I know there's exhibition games. Duke is Duke as usual, but, I joke all the time, man, Duke will get all these 5-stars and these great players, but they'll run into a team, a mid-major, and they'll be tied. So, they have Cooper Flagg, who is everybody's talking about. Texas lost a guy that they had gotten from Temple. There's some allegations going on that may be alleged like he was involved in, so he's no longer there. You got Wake Forest, you got Louisville, UNC, Hubert Davis, a Virginia guy up here from Northern Virginia where I'm at. Had a great first year, then last year they kind of fell off. Who are some of the teams we should look out for? Because I'm a big basketball guy. Especially with this new look ACC with new coaches and all the legends leaving. Is there a couple of teams that you have your eye on?
Well, I think Duke and Carolina, Dwight, are the consensus 1-2 in the league. You mentioned Cooper Flagg, and he comes in with a host of other 5-star freshmen. And there's also returning talent, perhaps most significantly Tyrese Proctor.
Yeah.
And then Carolina has the nation's only returning first-team All-American in R.J. Davis. And
Nice.
this is his 5th season. And because of that bonus COVID year, guys, R.J. Davis has a chance to supplant Tyler Hansborough as the career scoring leader, not only at Carolina, but in the ACC.
Wow. Who holds that record? Is that JJ Redick?
No, Tyler Hansborough.
Tyler Hansborough. Wow.
JJ is number 2. What's he doing now? Anybody know what JJ Redick's doing now?
I think I saw him last night. I think I saw him last night.
Yeah.
He's got a pretty good NIL deal, doesn't he?
He got a great one. It doesn't hurt to be LeBron's friend. Never hurts to be LeBron's friend. Mike, is there a sleeper team? I know we're still in football. Is there a team?
No, I really like Wake and I really like Pittsburgh this year. I really like both of their rosters. And, are they, would I have put them ahead of Duke or Carolina? No. But if you're asking me, hey, is there a team that people aren't projecting as maybe a top 25 team that could be there? I think both Wake and Pittsburgh. I mean, Wake with Hunter Salas. I mean, they've just, and Steve Forbes has proven every year he can kind of remake that roster. I think those are two. If I'm trying to look somewhere other than the blues of Duke and Carolina, Wake and Pittsburgh are two that I really have high hopes for.
Hey, guys, if you want the poster child for the current state of college basketball, a program that is in the midst of a coaching transition, Louisville has 12, count them, 12 incoming transfers.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Completely brand new
What?
roster.
Entire roster.
Yeah.
This is why we wanted you both on. This is why I wanted you both on. Because I'm just sitting here. I'm going to give you guys copyright credit. No copyright infringement. I did not know any of this.
Yeah, and
12.
it's wild when you think about what David just said about Louisville. Just think about Virginia and what we just talked about. It's a new coach. It's 4 scholarship transfers. It's 2 redshirt freshmen, and it's a new offense. It's a brand new offense that they were going to be running with Tony Bennett. Now they'll be running it for Ron Sanchez. So in that sense, Dwight and Danny, it's really hard to almost predict because you don't know who somebody's going to be, right? Is an all new roster good? Did you upgrade? Is an all new roster bad? Is that roster going to come together into something cohesive? If you put in a new offense, how are your players going to take to it? So you can say there's bad to the game right now, and I get all that. But from an entertainment standpoint, I don't think we're hurting here, guys. Like, I think we go into this year and it feels a little bit like the NFL with the idea of parity. Maybe it's not quite the same, but you go into the year feeling there's a lot of teams that I wouldn't bet my mortgage they're going to be good or bad. I'm just not quite sure. I think that makes it exciting.
Yeah, I love it. I'm able to adjust. I'm gonna watch all this stuff regardless. I will say though, there's a little bit of nostalgia I have growing up in ACC country, and I like the names. And as I mentioned when we started this segment, I mean, I was a Tony Bennett guy. I just like how he handled himself when they had that historic and embarrassing loss. As a 1C, first time ever, then came back and ran it back, and they won it. I feel like he did things the wrong way. I played for 2 Hall of Fame coaches in Mike Smith and Beamer, and both those guys did things the right way. So I'm a little biased now, missing Roy Williams and Coach K, but at the same time, I'm one of those guys, once this thing gets going, I'm gonna tune in. I'm gonna watch and learn the new names because it's a new opportunity for some new guys. Speaking of that, let's put the helmets on and go to the football field because we're still in the midst of a football season. But I just wanted to touch on Tony Bennett because I know you guys had some insight and I was curious, Danny and I both. But now let's talk Tech. Let's talk Tech in the ACC, Miami, because there's a lot of storylines. You got Mac Brown and UNC kind of in disarray. You got Tech that came in with all these expectations by the media, and they finally seem like they figured it out. But let's talk Tech, David, and Mike. Mike, I'll start with you. As I mentioned, Tech came into the season with Kyron Drones and Tootin, 2 all ACC type caliber performers, an offense which featured everybody back, 21 of 22 stars returning, and they got in their own way, man. What are your thoughts on Tech so far in this midway point of the season? What have you seen, and what are some good and some concerns?
Yeah, I think the concern for me is big picture, right? The concern for me is that people, including me, thought this team was going to start 4-0. And I don't know how many radio, TV, pods I'd said where I said, hey, it's about taking care of business, right? It's about Brent Pry showing he can manage these expectations, come out and take care of business. I didn't care if they were blowing people out. I didn't care if they looked perfect, but win the games, win those first 4 games. And let's go into Miami talking about, okay, wherever we are, if this needs to be tightened, this needs to be fixed, but you took care of business. And then they came out right from the opener. And I think Vanderbilt's a little saltier than people give them credit for. And you're never going to hear me cut down Rutgers because that's my alma mater. But
that's right.
They've certainly
that's right. That's right.
They've fallen on some harder times. But I was disappointed in Virginia Tech's inability to just take care of business coming out. Now, I think they have gotten their legs under them. I think they found themselves. I think they reversed their weird approach of, it seemed like they were guys throwing the football to set up the run, which is sort of counterintuitive to how you play football when you're a little kid, right? You run the ball, they stack the box, then you throw it. They came out, with the game plan flipped upside down. But I think they figured it out. I think they're in a good spot. They ended the year fantastic last year. I think they're just trying to replicate that energy. Look, they're not going to get 10 regular season wins. They're not going to be in the college football playoff. Some of the things that I think we were hoping could be the storyline this year, they can still have a very good season. And if you're a Tech fan, you got to move past the disappointment of starting 2-2 and say, if Brent Pry wins 8 games in this year, that's improvement. And you're seeing a guy who is building the program the right way. I understand the disappointment. I just wouldn't get too down depending on how they finish things off here.
David, your thoughts on our Hokies, Danny and our Hokies.
Well, bright picture, guys, is Virginia Tech is playing its best football of the Brent Pry era. Now,
Mm.
is that bar low? Yes. But you look at the last 3 games that the Hokies have played. Maybe they should have beaten Miami.
Sure.
That's a coin toss official's decision away.
Maybe they did beat Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not looking that way in the standings.
Right.
And then they respond. They go out west, long road trip, boat race Stanford.
Mhm.
Very little problem. Come home, take care of business against Boston College. And oh, by the way, Mike talked about how they finally got the game plan to where it needs to be, run first, pass second. Stanford and BC entered those games as 2 of the best rushing defenses in the league, and the Hokies gashed them both. And Bashal Tutin's performance Thursday night was historic.
Yes.
Guys, it was the 24th time in ACC history that a back has run for at least 260 yards. Every other one of those backs had at least 23 carries in those games. Tutin had 18.
It's incredible.
Guys, he averaged 14.8 yards per carry. I mean, that's remarkable. And think about this. If Virginia Tech beats Georgia Tech on Saturday, it will be the Hokies' first 3-game winning streak in a season in 5 years.
Mm.
That's tough to believe. That's
Right?
yeah. It seems like it has been a while though. And
2019.
yeah. You know,
Mm.
what's interesting too is, as I know Hokie fans have sort of tried to compartmentalize the first half of the season so far. You look at those 3 losses and really Virginia Tech had very good chances to win all 3 of those games. I mean, there are a handful of plays from having only 1 loss or potentially even being undefeated. Now, I think a lot of the motivation that they carried into, like Dave was talking about, that Stanford game. And that was an impressive bounce back game, going to the other side of the country, first game out there in California. And they went out there and they handled business, right? They, just like Mike was talking about. So I think, and for a program that has prided itself for so long on playing tough defense and running the football, I think they're getting back to their roots. You know, you've got a guy on the defensive side of the ball like Antoine Powell-Ryland who could get after the passer as good as just about anybody in the country right now. But it really does seem to all go through Bashal Tutin and whatever the offense is able to do in terms of running the football right now. And it's not just Tutin, because that offensive line is doing a very good job of opening some big holes like they did for the game against Boston College last Thursday night.
Xavier Chaplin.
Yeah, he's future NFL prospect.
Yeah, he's really good, guys. And he's there manning that left tackle position. Danny mentioned APR. He's with his 4 sacks on Thursday night, he's now the Hokies' first double-digit sack guy in a season since Daryl Tapp.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2005. And Dwight, ever since you invited Mike and me onto the pod, I've been thinking about this in light of APR's performance the other night. Number one, I think I know the answer to this. The best pass rusher you played with, and then the best pass rusher you played against, who whipped your fanny more often than you would care to admit.
Oh, my God.
I think I know who you're going to say, Dwight. I want to hear that.
Well, this is tough because played with. So the first 2 that come to mind, there are 3, but it's Engelberger's the 3rd, but the top 2 have to be between Corey Moore and Cornell Brown. I would oh my God, Dave, why'd you do this to me? They're both my friends and brothers, man. I'm gonna play it safe. I want to give a slight edge to Corey, but Cornell was an animal. It's a tie. It's a tie because I was younger when I'm a year behind Cornell Brown, and I faced him more than I faced Corey Moore because Corey Moore, we just never really matched up that much. But Cornell, I did, and Cornell, oh my God, he used to destroy me. That's when I knew I was supposed to redshirt. That's when I was like, I called home on the dorm phone. I said, yeah, I'm gonna take a strong red shirt because that defensive line was legendary in '95. I was there in '94. But Corey Moore, man, he would get in like a basketball player. He would get in the zone like a Steph Curry when he hits all those shots. And that's how Corey was. Once he got in the zone, he just was, you couldn't do anything. But the person that gave me the most trouble, it wasn't Chris Hovan. It wasn't the kid at Syracuse.
There's
It
one
was
guy that
Bob.
I know you always talk about,
Who is it? Who are you going to say? Who?
Vonnie Holiday.
Vonnie Holiday. I would say Vonnie
Yeah,
Holiday and
yeah.
Ebenezer Ecubon and Greg Ellis. That whole crew in
Carolina guy.
'97. Yeah, Greg, because we were outmatched in that game. Our best
Yep.
players were in the stands in Jacksonville with Ricky Hall, Sharon Stiff, Andre Davis. They were in the stands with my soon-to-be wife and everyone else. Nick Sorensen ended up finishing the game because Al was playing on one leg. And I remember going against Carolina, and I'm like, there's no reason we should be playing now. We made it to the Gator Bowl because of where we finished. They were 11-1, and they should have been in a much, respectfully to the Gator Bowl, a much better and bigger bowl. But Vonnie Holiday was a man, and Ebenezer Ecubon. Greg Ellis was bigger than me, and you guys know how big I am, and he was a savage. But David, you put me on the spot. I wasn't ready. See how he flipped that? Um, so let me ask you this. And I definitely want to ask you and Mike this question. I'm taking notes here because I do not want to forget this. I'd rather ask you on our show than on Twitter. But I've been asked this before, and Mike, I'll start with you. Is it harder to build a program? We talked about ACC basketball and legendary coaches leaving because of NIL. I hate when people ask me about, well, in my day, Beamer this and Beamer that. We didn't have NIL. We didn't have, all the different things going on. There was no social media. You didn't even have podcasts. You had text online. You had David Till and Norm Wood and all you guys writing. I don't even know if Andy was writing then, Andy Bitter, but it seems to me like it's harder because of the portal and because, a program like Tech, fans aren't as patient. It's well documented how Beamer had 6 years. And even in that 6 year, that 5th year, he was almost gone. He had to make some changes. I feel like I have to remind people sometimes that Pry is a first time head coach, and trying to get his feet established. Is it harder, or is it always hard no matter what era?
Yeah, I think it's always hard because you're always going against people trying to do the same thing, right? And I always laugh when I hear people say, oh, I was really happy for whatever team because they worked so hard all week. And I was like, okay, but you were at their practice. If you were up at the other school's practice, you'd see they worked hard all week too. And those coaches worked. So I think it's always hard on both sides. It's just different now, Dwight. Like, one, you can fix things and turn things around faster because of the portal. You can go get a quarterback instead of having to develop one. You can fill a hole in your offensive line instead of having to wait another year of development. So in that regard, it's easier. At the same time, there is less patience. Guys sign 5-year deals, and athletic directors are making a decision on them after 3. 3 years is not enough time. You haven't even had a full recruiting cycle come through. So the climate of college sports is not as forgiving. That makes it harder. But the tools you have in terms of the portal and NIL, that does make it easier to reverse things, to change your fate. But it's competitive. And it's supposed to be, right? College sports, that's why we watch. That's why we love it. It's because it's competitive. But it is hyper competitive now. I always laugh when somebody gets a job at an SEC school and they say, well, he's got to win more. And I said, well, who's he supposed to beat? Who on the schedule is he supposed to beat? And let me tell you the flip of that. If he goes and beats those schools, those guys are going to be out of a job. And they're going to be bringing. So the competitive nature of it, to me, is almost off the charts. I think schools that stick with a coach, if you think you've got the right coach and you think he's doing the right things, a little patience goes a long way. The problem is, we just talked about NIL. Well, are your boosters going to be patient? Because if the people who are writing checks aren't patient, it's time for you to move on and your hand is forced.
Yeah. And before you answer, David, I want to amend my answer, gentlemen. The number one pass rusher I had to go against was J.C. Price. I had a moment. I had a little bit of, I don't want to say CTE. I don't have that, but I had a moment. I'm getting older. It's definitely J.C. Price. He destroyed me because I matched up against him. He was a D tackle and I was a guard. And for 2 years, I hated practice because of him. Cornell and Corey Moore would sometimes JC destroyed me. So thank you, JC Price. But
I'm glad you came back with that, because I was going to text him and say Dwight left you off the list.
I'm so sorry, JC. He's my big brother. And don't do that, Mike. I'm in good standing with my tech guys. But no, yes, that was a great question. I've never been asked that, David. But yes, David, what about your thoughts? Is it harder or is it about the same? You know.
Well, as Mike stated, it's easier to flip the script with the portal. But what the portal makes it more difficult to do is to sustain success. What Frank Beamer did at Virginia Tech, all those 10-win seasons in a row, what George Welsh did at UVA for all those seasons, and what Cavaliers fans wouldn't give for that kind of consistency these days. Guys, all you need to look at is Florida State. 13-0 last season after winning the ACC championship before the Orange Bowl fiasco. Preseason favorites in the ACC this season. How's that working out for us? 1-6. The portal giveth, the portal taketh away. And Mike Norvell hit the portal jackpot last year, and this year he rolled craps.
Wow. It's crazy too, man, because I thought Florida State was going to be just on fire this year and playing with a sense of urgency and trying to make a point that they won a fluke and they got left out. It is, I don't know. I just know I try to tell my tech brethren to be patient because I think every program's not created equal. And with that being said, last part of the segment we have you on, I do want to touch on a few other teams. Mike, I'll start with you. You got, Clemson. Dabo catches a lot of heat because he doesn't really tamper with the portal too much, but yet it's crazy. Sometimes coaches and players are prisoners of the expectations they create. So you had a legendary quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, even my guy, Hampton Roads' own, a great quarterback, his own self, Taj Boyd. Now you're down to this rebuild, but they're still winning 10-plus games. You have UNC, which had two transcendent quarterbacks, and May and Howell, and now they're kind of losing and struggling to win games. They got destroyed by JMU, David Till's alma mater. What are some of the other teams in the ACC, good or bad, that have surprised you or kind of where you thought they would be? We already talked about Miami before you guys came on, and when you came on, they're on pace to meet Clemson possibly. And, SMU is quietly, nobody's talking about SMU. Are there some teams in the ACC?
Yeah, Dwight, not enough people are talking about Pittsburgh and what they've done. I thought Pittsburgh going into the year, I didn't think they would be this good. I thought they were a very good football team that needed a quarterback. And it turned out they had a quarterback. And the Holstein kid has been a revelation, and he makes them a complete football team. David talked about the difficulty of building and sustaining. And I think Pat Narduzzi has done that behind the scenes, right? Maybe the results aren't there. They're not winning 10 games a year. But he always seems to have another player up at the position. He seems to have developed depth. Are they 5-star guys? No. But maybe the way to win in this new model is 3.5-star guys and have a 3.5-star guy behind them. And it seems like Pitt has that. It seems like Pitt can lose a guy and bring another guy in. All they were missing was the quarterback. They have that now. I really like their team. I really like the way they came out to start the season. They won some just dogfight games, including the backyard brawl. They had the game against Cincinnati. So I really like Pittsburgh. I think Miami, and I've been one of those guys who I don't ever want to say the U is back, because every time you say it, you're wrong.
Don't.
Every time you say it, you're wrong.
Don't.
But I don't know. I'm intrigued now. Cam Ward is the real deal. They got a lot of talent. They came, obviously, we joked about, very close, if not all the way, of losing that Virginia Tech game. But, they didn't. They took care of business in a sense. I think Miami deserves to be considered credible. I don't think they're a fluke. I don't think they're a mystery. I think they're the real deal. I think Clemson, just because you're not as good as Georgia, doesn't mean you're not the best team in the ACC. Those are two separate conversations. And I think Clemson, the way they're rolling right now, they're the class of the league. But Pittsburgh, to me, they're the most intriguing team because I like their depth. I don't feel like there's any spot where they're that shaky, and their quarterback has just been outstanding.
I love Pittsburgh. I know Tech fans kind of troll Narduzzi because he's animated and he's extra. I interviewed him at ACC Media Day back with Kyle Bailey when I was doing the Tech pregame show. And I love the interview, and he's engaging. And I keep saying he fits the culture there, and they have an identity. Love him or hate him, Pittsburgh is definitely a team. Now, I'm glad you brought them up, Mike, because I keep forgetting about them because they're quietly winning games, and they don't win it in a sexy way. They're not. They adjust depending on the game and the way it's flowing, and you got to give them credit, man. It's going to be a great finish because I keep forgetting about Pittsburgh and SMU. David, same question though.
Guys, the game of the week in the ACC is not Florida State, Miami. It's Syracuse at Pitt.
Yeah.
Great game.
Guys, Syracuse has only lost once.
Yep.
And that was a peculiar game, losing to Stanford in the Cardinals' first ACC game there at the Dome. But Syracuse is the only team to beat UNLV this season. Did it on the road. And Syracuse's quarterback, the Ohio State transfer, Kyle McCord, he and Cam Ward actually are the only quarterbacks in the country who have thrown for at least 300 yards in every game this season. And Ohio State ran Kyle McCord out of town. 11-0, and then a loss to Michigan was not good enough for the Buckeyes.
Right.
And they kicked him to the curb and they were determined to make a change and get someone more mobile back there. But I'm intrigued by Syracuse. Not quite sold on Clemson because I don't believe they've really beaten anyone since the Georgia game. Now they're crushing people, much like Virginia Tech does when it wins. Guys, just one little nugget about the Hokies. They are the only power conference team in the last 2 seasons that are winless in one-score games.
That's crazy. We got to change that.
Every other power conference team in the country has won at least a one-score game in the last 2 years. Not the Hokies.
I think I know the answer, but David, what do you attribute that to?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, at some time, being a first-time head coach, that's where it shows up. How you manage late game situations, critical in-game decisions, and I think Brent Pry's done a lot of great things building that program. But that stat, every time David uses that stat, I'm staggered by it because you just don't think they haven't been bad, so you wouldn't think that stat would be true, but it is, and it's wild. And I do think it comes down to those in-game decisions.
I mean, it's the most mind-blowing statistic of anything I think that's happened in the Brent Pry era, or even going back further for Virginia Tech. Because you look at that on paper, you've got a 50% chance of winning those games, right? And you haven't won a single one. I mean, I don't know what else you attribute it to other than coaching.
Yeah,
I think,
that's not a single one in the last 2 years. They did, in his first year, they beat Liberty.
Right.
In the season 5. So overall, he's 1-10 in one-score games. But to your point, Danny, it's a coin toss. Guys, full disclosure, Dwight, you mentioned and I know we're rambling here. I apologize.
No, go ahead. You're fine, man.
But you mentioned the Carolina JMU game.
Yeah.
So I'm driving home from Chapel Hill
Mm-hmm.
because I was there, and I'm listening to Bill and Mike on the broadcast of the Rutgers game.
Rutgers, yeah.
And Tech comes storming all the way back, back-to-back touchdowns and 2-point conversions to tie that game late after the atrocious start. And the Hokies have all the momentum. And what's the first thing that popped into my mind as I'm listening to the broadcast? How are they going to screw this up? And how long did it take? Boom. Screen pass, 57 yards.
That was the game that I was covering, and I can vouch for David because he texted me exactly that. He said, how are they going to screw this up? And what was amazing was they hadn't let a play pop all day. I mean, defensively, they had kept Monungai. They had kept that offense really bottled up. I don't think there was a gain of more than 17 yards at that point. And then all of a sudden that pops and there's your ball game. And it all comes down to you've got to find a way to take care of business, whether it's the early part of the season or the last few minutes of a ball game. That's got to become part of your program.
Yeah, man. I was coming from ODU visiting my oldest daughter, and I watched the first half in her apartment in Norfolk. Earlier that day, I saw my nephew, who's a starting quarterback at Bethel High School. Shameless plug. Shout out my nephew, Derek Fisher. He's a sophomore, getting interest from JMU and ODU and others. And I'm driving, and I almost wrecked in the tunnel because I'm like, oh, we coming back. And I'm hearing Bill Roth, and all of a sudden, the screenplay. And it was just like, stop doing this. But hopefully they get it right, man. And we appreciate you both for always getting it right. Thank you both, Mike Barber and David Till, for joining us. Hopefully this is not the last time we get you both on. Now that you guys have been on, I know I'm big fans of you both, and I check for your tweets. There's certain
Same.
people I get alerts for, and I always check for both of you guys. Thank you guys for all these nuggets. I'm going to quote them and pretend to be a genius in the Twitter spaces when I'm debating people. I will give you guys credit though. I'll make sure. I got a radio show tomorrow on Big Dog Sports Radio, so I'll mention this stuff and I'll give you guys credit. But thank you both, man. Have a great week. What games are y'all? Some fans want to know, what do you guys got going on now? Real quick, Mike. What do you both, Mike, you, David, you guys doing right now?
Yeah, so my big thing right now, I've got a feature on who is Ron Sanchez, the new Virginia basketball coach. That's coming out in the Virginia Pilot in tomorrow's edition. It's up online now. This weekend, I'll be at UVA Carolina for the first quarter, and then I'm heading over to James Madison. They're playing Southern Miss for their homecoming game. So I'm double dipping Saturday.
Nice.
So I'm trying to keep busy and try to keep myself out of trouble.
The oldest rivalry?
Oldest rivalry in the South. That's
at
least how they try to sell it.
And UVA won last year, right?
They did. That was their biggest win of the year.
Yeah.
Carolina was ranked number 10. They went down and beat them. And probably the biggest win at that point of the Tony Elliott tenure.
That's a weird rivalry game too, because they seem to have like weird games. But I'll be watching that, man. And David, what do you got going on? What are you at? Where are you at?
Like Mike, I've been writing a lot about Ron Sanchez. I'll be in the pages of the Daily Press, Dwight, as I have been a couple times here recently.
Yes.
And making a little comeback with them, writing about Ron. Have some columns planned for next week on the college football playoff and the new 12-team format, which is now run. The new executive director of the college football playoff is a Richmond guy.
Love it.
Rich Clark played his high school ball in the 804 and then was a defensive lineman and linebacker at Air Force.
Nice.
Love that. Love that.
Man, I love it. Man, I appreciate you both, man. Again, we'll have you back on. Thank you both, Mike Barber and David Till. We appreciate you both for jumping on the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast. And I speak for so many when I say thank you for all the nuggets and what you do, all the articles, all the podcasts, the conversations. Give you guys a follow. I'm sure everybody already does, but just in case, if you're new to this, check them out on Twitter. Appreciate you both, man. Thank you guys. Have a great evening. Keep up the great work. Danny and I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Thanks y'all.
For having us. Yeah, thank you guys.
Best of y'all, man. Be good.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir. There again, if you listen on Spotify, that is that is David Till, the Hall of Fame journalist, and my guy, Mike Barber. Two guys I follow and really appreciate, and I've been on their stuff before as far as articles. We're getting ready to join another guest here from Boundary Corner Podcast, but before I bring him on, I just want to, again, Danny, that was a great segment. I mean, I could probably talk to those guys all night, man. Like, listen, you're dealing with two great ones, especially David. I mean, I'm feeling old right now because David covered me in high school, like my district. And then he covered Tech and UVA when I was in college. And y'all know, for you watching or you're listening, I'm old. So, but you know what never gets old is just their insight and what they bring to the table, man. That was fun. And I took notes, man. So I'm going to use that.
Those guys are special, man. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that I feel indebted to those two just for how much time they've donated to me and the radio shows and the pregame shows that I've hosted, where they've graciously come and been a part of it and just lend their insight after decades of covering ACC sports. I love talking to them. I loved running into them in the press box. It was always really neat to catch up with them. And they're both awesome dudes. It just so
Yeah,
happens as well.
no
So
doubt, man. And speaking of awesome dudes, we are
yeah,
joined here by Boundary Corner Podcast own one of the co-hosts. He's getting his audio right. My guy Talley, who over the last 3 or 4 years with his show with my guys Curtis and Brian on the Boundary Corner Podcast. I've been on there the most by any guest. Talley and I have grown very close, man. He's somebody that I talk and text during the games now. We talk whether win or lose. Talley, we see you on there. I think you're muted, man. How you doing, man? Welcome to the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast.
Man, I'm wonderful, man. Can y'all hear me good?
Yeah, you
gotcha.
sound good. You look good. You
Yeah,
sound
man.
good. Love
I
the fit.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
I was over here struggling trying to get it to. I could see y'all, but I couldn't hear you for a minute. So I was over here trying to play with it to make sure that I could hear. So it's all good, man. Lovely.
We just had on David Till and Mike Barber. So you're our last segment tonight. But I told you I wanted to get you on. I wanted to get you and Curtis and Brian all on, but we'll get you guys on again. I know y'all been on before, but I wanted to kind of do a two-parter from your Twitter space the other night. We talked. It was a very good Twitter space. I jumped on there with you and Chris, and your Twitter space, man, are really good because just like Don V's, people are talking. We have a very, very passionate fan base, but I feel like you were dropping some gems, man. So this week, let's preview the Georgia Tech game and talk about Tech in general. We're just gonna finish this segment off with talking Tech. Tech hosts Georgia Tech in Lane Stadium this Saturday at 12 o'clock. They're on a 2-game winning streak. I believe last I checked, they were favored by 8.5 points, which a lot of that is based on Georgia Tech's quarterback may or may not play. He's banged up. Before we talk about Georgia Tech, let me back up a second, man. A lot of talk about Tootin's performance on Thursday night, which should be the focus in APRs with 20 sacks and 20 games. But you touched on in your Twitter space some of the other things going on, the game within the game that led to the win, including some of the young guys playing, including the O-line, the play calling. Just tell everybody your thoughts, man. Some of the other things that maybe people missed in that win against BC.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, a good game. Like I think we talked about in this space. A great game. We could say a great game. A 21-point win is always great, especially at home in orange uniforms and during the orange out. So
you love orange.
I'll take that anytime. But even going back to the Stanford game, and then the BC game, it's like we're starting to come into our own. We're starting to form an identity, but we're also starting to put talent on the field. When we were going through those games where we were struggling in some aspects, I kept saying, and other people kept saying, and I would ask questions like Dwight said. I mean, we talked. I have to call him to get some knowledge on some things going on, because it's like maybe I'm seeing it wrong. Let me get somebody else's input on this to make sure I'm not tweaking. You know what I'm saying? But we've got some young players that are just more talented than what we've seen in the past. You know what I'm saying? We've been a place that is good to get people and develop them. And then you see people come on in their junior and senior year, or, maybe a red shirt sophomore year and things like that. We're actually getting talented kids that are ready to play right out of high school. You know what I'm saying? When you look at a Caleb Woodson, I know Caleb Spencer, went to Miami and then he transferred here. Mose Phillips starting as a true freshman and then coming in. It's like the name goes on and on about the kids that we're seeing that are talented young kids that are sitting on the bench just waiting their turn. And when they get the opportunity, you can see the difference. You can see the floor being raised. Of course, young players are going to make mistakes, but old players making mistakes as well. And I think me and Dwight talked a lot about the offensive line. I was like, when we were struggling to run the ball, with a running back like Tootin and, a quarterback like Kyron, I'm like, you can't tell me there's not somebody over there that can go in and make a difference. And then they insert Johnny Garrett, and you see him pull and wrap into the hole and clear the trash out. And all Tootin needs is a little bit of space. You know what I'm saying? So that just seeing the young players get in the game and actually produce. You know, the Brody Meadows and like I said, Johnny Garrett, the young Moore brother, Xavier Chaplin. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
I understand he may be, you know, like a veteran to us, but he's still a young player. He's still got a lot of college football left. And just to see him develop is good, man. It's what we need, because I think Tech fans always feel like we got to find a Cam Chancellor. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We got to find a diamond in the rough. We got to find a Dorian Strong. You know, we got to find these people that are, you know, man, he wasn't recruited high, but we got him, and now look at him. Like, some people are recruited high for a reason. Florida State was coming in for Caleb Woodson for a reason.
Yes.
You know, they wanted him to come to Florida State bad. I'm sure they threw a lot of stuff at him.
Yeah, I know.
He could have went. I mean, Dwight, I'm sure you probably know more than I do being there in Virginia, but he came to Tech, and he came to Tech to play in front of his, you know, his family, be closer to home, and he wanted to get on that field. And I feel like, you know, I hate to keep going back to him, but I can only go by what I see. And when we played Rutgers, and people were frustrated because they kept running that play, and they said, well, why ain't we adjusted? And why ain't we doing this? And why ain't we doing that? I said, well, sometimes the players that we have in can't. You can't tell a stiff-hipped person to flip their hips and get this way. They can't do it. And then when you go with a younger player like Caleb, you're like, he has to see those reps, because I seen those plays after that game, and they were minimal gains. It wasn't the same 10, 12, 8-yard play. It was more of a tackle for loss or 2-yard play, because he's getting those reps, and that's the only way you really can get a young player invested in what he's doing. So the young players that I'm seeing get in, man, I think it's just going to be more and more. And I mean, the sky's the limit, to be honest with you, because I don't think that people understand the job that the staff did when they came in and started recruiting some of these guys. I did a segment on recruiting rankings last night too, and I ain't even got to get into all that, but trust your eyes. I think Dwight said that a million times. Trust your eyes. Go watch tape. Don't just say, oh, we got a guy, man, or he's a Hokie. You know what I'm saying? You got a right to say, oh, why did we take him? Or, man, I know this kid may be a little bit better, but trust your eyes. Go watch the tape. There's no reason that Jeffrey Overton Jr. should be 32nd in Virginia right now. And I won't go deep into it, but I'll just say that. Go back and watch Caleb Woodson's high school film. There's no reason he was number 18 in Virginia. No reason.
And I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop you right there. I know Danny
go
got
ahead.
a question. I've been on Jeffrey Overton Jr. the same way I was in the comments on your great show with Curtis and Brian on the Boundary Corner podcast when we signed Caleb. And I'm praying, because I'm up here. I know his dad, I know his uncle. They're coaching at Hayfield, one of the best teams in the state. And Jeffrey Overton Jr. is the program changer. I'm praying we can hold on to him, because I know Penn State and some few people sniffing around trying to get him to flip, because he is that damn good. And if you think Tootin is special, he fits our offense just as well. And I'm glad you brought up the young guys and the players coming in, because I think that's being overlooked because of Tech's initial struggles to start the season. But, you know, they just got another guy I'm high on, Lauren Johnson's youngest son, Peanut.
Yep.
He is a dog. And I didn't even know he was going to come, because Lauren Johnson, everyone knows we're extremely close, but I don't get involved in, hey, what's your son or daughter going to do? He's got 3 great children, a beautiful wife. We just talk sports after his season's over. I don't get involved. We hung out a lot, me, him, his wife, and my wife at the spring game in the field house, but I didn't ask him. I knew Peanut had some great offers, some power 5s, power 4s. And then when I saw 2 days ago he committed, I said, damn, Pryor and them are doing the damn thing. That's a huge get, because when I say trust your eyes in the Twitter space, or when I'm on the show with Danny, go and look at, for those listening on Spotify or you're watching us right now, go and look at his film. His film, he's going to stand out immediately.
Even from his 10th grade year. From his 10th grade year. When he was playing on the field when Braylon was there, people said, oh, the younger brother's the better brother. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm not saying either one of them's better or worse than the other. I'm just saying because they do different things, but I'm just saying like he's been like that since he stepped on the field. So that's part of coaching. That's part of culture. That's part of what they. That's why pipelines are so important. You go look at the players that we have now, where they come from. You go look at who's a Springer that's on our team. You know, Allie Jennings, Kelvin Gilliam, Braylon Johnson, Takahi. Like all of those people were coached by a high level coach, and they know how to win. They know how to follow. They know how to lead. You know, you got to get people from them programs. That's what it is. So kudos to the staff for coming in and putting that as a preference and putting that to the forefront and actually sticking with it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Dwight, when we had Coach Lauren Johnson on, didn't we have him on a couple years ago? And he actually said something like, "Yeah, Braylon's real good, but wait till the young one gets up."
He's been on that show about 2 or 3 times. I mean, he was on the show we did with Mike too. Yeah,
he was hyping up his youngest son. He was, because he not the older one, maybe not getting as much hype back then, but now. We're gonna see what he can contribute to the program. But Talley, you were talking about sort of diamonds in the rough and the way that this staff has really done a good job recruiting. Certainly much better than where Tech was at when Coach Pry came in. I mean, they've done well in the transfer portal too, right? I mean, they able to get a guy like Bashal Tootin from a place like North Carolina A&T. I would consider that a diamond in the rough. And man, the way that he's both running the ball, but the way that the offensive line is blocking, there were some huge holes in that Boston College game. My goodness. It's no wonder that he could trot 86, 87 yards like he did, because the offensive line, you could have drove a bulldozer through that dang thing. So I think as long as like we were talking about with Teal and Barber, Dwight, a few minutes ago, if they use the run to set up the pass as is tradition, let just the offense flow through Tootin, I have a hard time seeing anybody stopping this team, at least from picking up points standpoint.
Well, before Talley answers or responds to your statement, I said on his Twitter space Saturday night, this is Tootin's team.
Yeah.
This is Tootin's team. I saw a Twitter, somebody posted on X, I still call it Twitter, and they, you can write in a presidential candidate. Yeah, somebody wrote in Tootin's name. Tootin for president. Listen, and y'all know I love drones. The first person on drones was Talley, and I took his point and I ran with it, and I started to see drones, and of course he came in the Purdue game, and the rest is history. When I say it's Tootin's team, I'm saying it's not against Lane or my man, you call him White Iverson, the receiver.
Oh, yeah, Gosnell.
Yeah, he calls him White Iverson. We have receivers. We have some running backs. We have a great group of personnel on offense, and we have some very good, ferocious players on defense. But when I say it's Tootin's team, Tootin's offense, I mean, he has established himself as that difference maker. But, Talley, we got you on. What are your thoughts on what Danny just said?
Yeah, no, Danny's, spot on. Again, Virginia Tech fans are crazy. It's called fans for a reason. Like, we fanatics. We go nuts. We high, we low. It's never, we try to – I have to call somebody like Dwight to get me off of a ledge. When I had a Twitter space, 2 years aago, Dwight, that went to 3 in the morning. Well, everybody was on a ledge, and Lauren Johnson actually came in the space and was like, hey, man, calm down. Because people say, ain't nobody coming to Tech. These kids ain't coming. And he was like, come on, man. Like, I think I know a little bit more than the most, but y'all need to relax a little bit. You know what I'm saying? After we lost the ODU. So, I understand getting up and getting down through these wins and losses and stuff, but we got to give credit where credit is due. For some of the stuff that's bad, that's okay to speak on it, but when it's good, you got to speak on it too. They have not missed in the portal. You know what I'm saying? It may be a couple of linemen that we missed on that didn't get on the field, but everybody who we kind of have went out and got has come in and contributed. And a lot of people that we've got in the portal has come in and been, a cornerstone of the team. When you talk about Tootin was ready to go to Boston College. Like, if y'all don't remember that, if y'all don't remember that recruitment, I think he already had his pictures and stuff made. I don't know if he was on campus or he was getting ready to go to campus. The next thing you know, he transferred or he, flips and comes to Virginia Tech. Like, I don't know who was behind it, but I know it was a good job. You know what I'm saying?
Lord.
I don't know what they said or what they did. I don't need to know. It ain't my business, but I'm glad they went and did it. Kevin Jones probably has something to do with it, but I don't know. But I'm just saying I'm happy that they were able to do it. And I think I was telling Dwight when I was at Vanderbilt, I was so frustrated, man, because you got so many expectations for the season, and then we get to Nashville and it's live, it's hype. Like Virginia Tech's all over the place. All you see is orange and maroon. Like that was our city. You know what I'm saying? You got you got black Hokies out there with cowboy boots on, feet hurting, dancing, doing all type of stuff. And then we get in the game, and then we lay an egg.
Right.
But what I'm seeing is I can take a L. I took a lot of L's in my life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm okay with taking an L if we do it the right way. Like we got out there and that didn't look like us. And I'm looking at Tootin, and he's like, give me the ball. He's looking to the sideline, beating his chest. Man, give me the ball. They can't stop me. And what we do, we trying to throw it. You know what I'm saying? We trying to put backup quarterbacks in to run trick plays. Come on, man. Take the layups. Dwight, your son, play basketball. Yeah. If they give you a layup, take it. Why we shooting threes?
Take the easy basket. Man. That's a great point.
Take the easy baskets. And I think for me, because I looked at so many people on the team, and I knew Tootin was good, don't get me wrong, but Kyron's a quiet kid as well, a young man, and Tootin's not very rah-rah from what you kind of see, but some people are just leaders on the field. And when I see him on the field, even when he doesn't have the ball, his mannerisms, the things that he's doing, how he wants the ball, how he's conducting himself, I was like, it's his team, man. You know, he's a senior. This is his last shot. It ain't well, I got a chance to come back. Like, this is he's done. He's going to the league, and he's leaving it all on the field every play, every game. This is his team. Let's find a way to get in the ball.
He is putting himself, and you got to remember, I've been there. I won't say day one, but I was there day 1A and building this program with my brothers, and I've been around some great backs from Dwayne Thomas to Sharon Stith, to Ryan Williams, Marcus Parker, Ken Oxendine, Darren Evans, oh my God, David Wilson. I mean, you talk about Tech backs, Tony Kennedy, Von Hebron.
Khalil Herbert.
And Tootin is he's getting a place at the table. When he first got there, he was in the waiting room. They didn't have a seat for him. Now they didn't open the door, and they're getting ready to put him there. And just to bring my point home, that I also talk about with recruiting, and Talley, you talked about it. You know, it just shows you how nonsensical the recruiting stuff is, because I used to write for Rivals for 3 years and then 247. And I got into it with those guys all the time because they work hard. They go to the camps and they interview, and I did interviews and I covered camps. I held camps. But at the same time, some of them are lazy, because Tootin, being at A&T, as good as that kid is, this ain't against A&T. My parents are products of HBCUs. I'm talking about the fact that we weren't hearing about him, but you see him at Tech and what he's doing at a place like Tech, where in a game he only had 18 carries. We just heard this from the great David Till. In that game, only 23 other running backs have set that record where they rush for 200+ yards. All of the other backs, except for Tootin, had 20+ carries to get there. Tootin only had 18, and he had a 14-yard per rush average.
That's crazy.
He is special. And David Till told us that BC and Stanford are very good against the run. So, with that being said, let's look forward to this weekend, Talley. You know, you and I have been talking offline. You know, we're in a group chat, me, you, and our brother Chris, and you have your post-game Twitter Spaces, and Don V has his, and sometimes you were all on it together. You have done a great job hosting Twitter Spaces. Can Tech beat Georgia Tech and keep this run going? What has to happen, and can it happen?
Yeah, I think I said on our show, and the point that I hit home is, you know, Tech can beat the team that can beat Virginia Tech this year is Virginia Tech. If they go out and they play, we can beat anybody on our schedule. I'm not saying we will beat everybody on our schedule. I'm saying we can, because none of those teams that I've seen scare me. You know, Georgia Tech coming in, you know, you got all of these different things, like just say Virginia Tech hadn't beat Georgia Tech in Blacksburg in this many years. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that happened in those years. You know what I'm saying? You can change that. This should be a big game to you. What Virginia Tech has to do is stay ugly. They gotta stay ugly. And what I mean by that is stop getting cute. There's no need to get cute. There's no need to change anything, to reinvent the wheel. We know what works. We are 7 games in. We know what works. We know we're sitting here talking about it. So I know they're in the locker rooms living it. We know who the leaders on the team is. We know what drives the team. Let's just let it drive. You know what I'm saying? No need to get cute. If you up by 28, unless you're putting a second string offense in and you're doing some things that is working off of your offense, why are we going to run a trick play with a backup quarterback that's leaving next year anyway? I don't understand it. You know what I'm saying? Little stuff like that. Like, look, that's why I say we just got to stay ugly. Don't get cute. Let's just be us. And it's okay to be an ugly team. It's okay to be I'm okay with winning a boring game. Like, to me, Stanford was kind of boring. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go look at it, but it was the most grateful boring that I've seen. I'm like, man, I ain't even worried. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That shit felt good.
It felt good just to watch a game, and everything was working good, and we had long drives, and we had defensive stops, and we were doing what we were supposed to do. It's okay to win like that. I'm okay with that. We don't have to get flashy and do anything special to beat these guys. You know what I'm saying? And the reason that line has been moving is because of injuries. But that backup quarterback came to Tech and beat us in 2022.
Yep.
And he's a Bama guy. I watched this kid grow up.
But Tech gave that game away, right? Tech gave that game away.
They beat us 28-27. You know,
we were driving in and the running back fumble.
We had a fumble, but Willis was there as well. Not Ryan Willis, Grant Wells.
Yeah.
You know, over the years we've shot ourselves in the foot so many times. I'm ready to see us get past that. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready to see us get past. Well, we do this all the time. We've overcame some things, but now it's time to keep your foot on the gas and continue setting milestones. You know what I'm saying? This is one of them. This is a big game. We're 4-3. You lose this game, you go to 4-4. It's a much different outlook than if you're at 5-3. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, the staple isn't to go to a bowl game, but you got to go to a bowl game, right? So that's the first thing you want to do is hit that milestone, get to the bowl game, and then we figure out everything else after that. So when you're sitting at 5-3, you ain't got that monkey on your back of we only got 4 games, so we got to win 2. Or man, just go play. Like this is set up for us to go win. And all we got to do is just go be us. If we're the best version of Virginia Tech that we've seen in any game, you pick the game. And if we play every quarter like we played one of those quarters out of that game, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think too, Talley, what a game like this comes down to, and you could say this just about pretty much any game, but turnovers, right? You look at Georgia Tech's quarterback, and that kid King has only thrown 1 pick all season. And when I look back, especially at the Boston College game, right, a couple of early turnovers really gave Tech some momentum in that game, right? Really lit a fire under them, gave the offense a little bit of extra juice. They took the wind out of Boston College sails early. Then the third quarter comes around, and you throw a pick and have a fumble on the first 2 drives of the Hokies' third quarter, and all of a sudden Boston College is back in it. So we know what role turnovers can do and how quickly they can turn a game around. I think that will be telling because this Georgia Tech team, you mentioned the line, it's up to 10.5 right now. They can keep it close.
It's
so long as they're
10.5?
It's up to 10.
It was up to 11.5 at one point.
Yeah.
So,
and another reason why I think that too is I don't know if y'all have watched Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has a man-child at linebacker, number 44. He instantly became a meme at the beginning of the year when they played Florida State, and he's got the old school cowboy collar on, the face paint. I don't know his name, but he's hurt. Apparently, he's been hurt. Okay. We had one of the guys from Rec Talk on our podcast yesterday, and he talked about some of the injuries that they have. So I think that's why the line is kind of moving. That like that's their run stopper. If he's not in the game, if 44 isn't on Georgia Tech side, Tubin's gonna have a field day. Yeah. I mean, if he's there, we still can play. But I'm just saying if that's their run stop, and if he's not in, it's going to be trouble, if we do what we're supposed to do.
No run stopper, and you're trying to avoid turning the ball over. That sounds like the perfect formula to get tooting rolling early. Just give them the football.
Give him the football, man.
Man. Yeah. It's my last question. Our last question for you, Talley, and we'll let you go. I got to finish watching y'all show from last night. I was working, but shout out to you, you and your guys at Boundary. I love you, Curtis and Brian. I love what y'all do. You guys have become one of the more popular podcasts for the Virginia Tech community. But with that being said, man, we talked a lot about I've said many times in Twitter Spaces, it's not a rebuild, it's a build for pride. You're not rebuilding, you're creating expectations, you're building something where it's like, oh, this is Coach Pride's thing. We have this. Coach Pride started that. Coach Pride, he got his signature win against Clemson where they went on to win seven straight. This is Pride's team. This is his organization. This is his program. For Virginia Tech to take the next step this season and on to next season, you talk about recruiting, you talk about playmakers, Drones has one more year, but you know how that can go with the NFL. If there's no certainties in college football anymore or sports in general. Never really has been, but with now in college sports, it's not. What does Pride need to keep doing with his program to get Virginia Tech back where a brand is not only relevant, but it gets that respect that it once had? We're getting there, but we still have a little ways to go. Some have said, including myself, he's got to get a signature recruit. Drone seems to be that guy, him and Tootin. But then again, it could be Jeffrey Overton Jr. There are other guys on the way. Some say you got to beat a team like Clemson to get that signature win. Some say you got to win the conference. It's all everyone's opinion, but I always value your opinion. What does he need to do as a head coach just this season as he builds towards building this program to kind of get everybody, oh yeah, this is really what we expected? What does he have to do?
No, a lot of the things that you hit on, you're already answering that question. So great question. You know what I'm saying? That's a great question. It makes you think a lot about, what do we need to do? And, it's kind of started, but you got to get that win. It's like when everybody watched us, the world, not just Virginia Tech fans, when the world watched us go play Miami, and that looked like a rivalry game. That looked like a team that was not scared. That looked like people said, man, I remember when y'all used to play like this. I remember this. Like I had people, I'm in the middle of Alabama. I'm in the middle of SEC country, like Tennessee fans, Auburn fans. Everybody was texting me, and usually it's, oh, man, y'all got on TV. Y'all sorry. Oh, I can't believe you not this and that. Everybody was like, man, I'm about to go play the game. I'm about to play with y'all. Y'all got a running back. He liked that. Or y'all's quarterback. We didn't look out of place. You know what I'm saying? Like we really didn't look out of place. We looked like we belonged. You know what I'm saying? We didn't look discombobulated. We didn't look disjointed. We looked like a team that was going in there and we weren't scared. If you go look at that game, we dominated that game. You know what I'm saying? We were in control of that game. And I don't want to bring the refs into it. We gave them the game. Stinks. It is what it is. They won the game. We lost the game. But Pride has to get to the point where that is what we see, and that's what we expect every week. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to Michael Vick. Shout out to Bud Foster. Shout out to all the OGs that came before the kids that are there now and the coaches that are there now. But we can't keep leaning on them. Like we are still showing, like to go get a quarterback recruit, we got to show him Michael Vick. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that they don't never have to stop because he's going to be him. And we can go deep into the Michael Vick bag, but I'm just going to say we got to be able to piece that because it was like, even though we had Vick and then we had Tyrod and then we had, Brian, like we had all these people that were in there. It's like, we always have to revert back to that because that's what the world remembers seeing. You know what I'm saying?
Great point.
I want to piece all of it together. We can start a highlight with Michael Vick and we can end it with Kyron Drones. Yes. We have to piece the past with the present. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know exactly how that's done, but I know the groundwork that Pride setting is a good way to start doing that. You know what I'm saying? We got back to our roots. We started doing traditions that are Virginia Tech traditions. You know what I'm saying? Him even just going and talking to people. Like, how hard is it to talk to people? Well, apparently it's really hard. You got to be a certain type of person to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because again, like I'm not from Virginia. I had to learn a lot of stuff from my people that are there with their boots on the ground, and they say, you know, man, I was at the bar and I seen Bud, and he walked up to me and said, hey, man, let's have a drink together or something like that. Well, we got to a point where people didn't see that from coaches, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if you don't do that and you winning, but when you're not winning, none of that stuff, you can't get away from that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or they say, hey, Frank used to walk his dog on campus all the time, and people would go up and take pictures with him, or they'd go up and speak, and he was just well, we got away from that for a while, and you could feel it. You could feel it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Being all the way here in Alabama, people would look on the, we ain't gonna watch this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like we be on Thursday nights. No, but when we were playing Thursday night against Boston College, everybody I knew had it on.
Yeah.
Everybody I knew had it on TV.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't watch the whole game, they're like, damn, y'all running back good. I'm like, thank you, man. I'm glad that you noticed. Thank you.
That's a great point. That's actually a great point. In the primetime games against Pittsburgh last year, when we had that coming out party on the ACC Network at 8:00, and then that was a Saturday night game, and then the Miami game was a back and forth affair. The teams got into it going into commercial. Thursday night, Tootin sets a record, and you had the interest. That was actually probably the better game. Yeah, because the NFL game was trash that night. I think the Saints were playing somebody. So you're right, man. A lot of people did watch that game. So that was a great answer, a great response, because what you're saying is you got to win, basically, and also you got to show out to keep that brand. When people tune in, you got to give them something to tune in. And I think that's what Tech was always known for, with their dynamic quarterbacks and their play and their physicality. And you're right. It feels like we're getting back to that, but I'm just going to focus on Georgia Tech.
Yeah, no, another thing, too, just to build on that, too, Dwight, that you could throw in there with that, and I think you kind of alluded to it when you said maybe a signature recruit. Sometimes it's got to be one or two things. You got to land like a big fish that everybody hears about, or you got to develop the guy that everybody hears about. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When you get a guy on campus like Caleb Woodson, you got to get him to the league. You know what I'm saying? If you're that coaching staff, you cannot squander away talent. You know what I'm saying? Because they already have it to get that. Go ahead.
To your point, that's what killed Greenberg, Seth, because you missed out on Steph. And I know my friends always say, you know, they're Tech guys, well, nobody offers Steph, but his mom and dad were legends. His mom was there as a volleyball player. His dad's one of the best basketball players of all time at Tech, and he was a legendary shooter in the NBA. You could have given him a preferred walk-on scholarship, not a preferred walk-on. And then, okay, you miss on him. He becomes one of the best guards of all time. But then you miss on his younger brother who went to Liberty and then transferred to Duke. It took Duke to a couple of Elite Eights. So missing on a player is huge, man. I'm glad you brought that up, because even if you get a guy, he becomes that. Every time you mention Seth Curry, even though Davidson is not a powerhouse, they're a quality mid-major. That's Puff for Davidson. And I love how you mentioned my cousin, how I get on Tech fans about like, yo, man, miss me with these history lessons. I want to talk about now. I don't want to keep going. I love my era, but I mean, I'm old. I want to talk about this new era. I want to hear about it. It made my heart warm seeing Wyatt Teller become the animal and seeing Wyatt Teller become a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro. I have no problem with somebody say, yo, Vic, you were really good, but Wyatt Teller, hey, man, it's all love. We all Tech. We all Hokies. So, Talley, you dropping gems, man, like you always do. I appreciate you. Danny appreciates you. We both do, because you're spot on. I'm excited about this weekend. Real quick before you jump off, man, you're on Boundary Corner Podcast with Curtis and Brian, one of the more popular shows. How can people follow you online, and when do y'all come on? I want you to plug what you guys, because it's great. I watch. I'm in the comments. What are y'all doing? What y'all got?
Yeah, we're always on. Most of the time we're on Tuesday nights. We do go live on Tuesday night, so our show is a live show. We always have invested in the comment section and in the chat, and just being able to interact with the guys on that. That's Boundary Corner Podcast. Again, with Brian Siegler, myself, Curtis, and Shelton Moss. So if you guys ever have the opportunity to tune in and pay attention, please do. You can follow me on X at Talibands with a Z 44. So that's Talibands 44. on X. You're probably gonna hear some stuff that you don't want to hear, but you'll hear a lot of good stuff that you do want to hear. So
He's a great
yeah, man.
follow. He's a great follow.
Yeah.
He
I love
is. He
following
is.
him. He kills me. He be going back at some of my UVA brothers, and he be
Oh yeah,
going,
man. It's a
hey
good
man,
time, man.
it is a
Tell you.
great time. I promise you, follow him. I know I'm funny, and then he is even funnier. And he gives great insight, and he is not afraid to clap back at some trolls. I love it.
Oh
And
man, we have a great time. I
Talley
tell
has to be
everybody too, man. I mean, besides this, like it's a community. You know, I got to give a shout out to like Danny. Danny's probably one of the OGs to get in here and start talking. Like it's really hard to get in front of people and talk. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you,
it's hard to do it and continue doing it in the off season or in the off weeks or during the bad times. You know what I'm saying? And then you get people like Danny who's they just get in there and do it, and they go and they do their homework and they go to their regular job and their family, but they still come and do this and they put good content out. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then now we have platforms where everybody can be heard. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of the reasons why the spaces are so important and the spaces are so popular, because you know some of the people who are usually more reserved that do have some great things to say are not, you know, brave enough to step out and be like, okay, I'm gonna do like Danny. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get out here and I'm gonna talk about the things that I see. But you know, on a space, man, it's just we just go in there and we just hang out. You know what I'm saying? We just go in there and we talk, and it's a lot of great points that I used, you know, even on the show or you know, just me watching the game. I'll go back to like, oh yeah, Hokie 2379 did say that we need to watch out for this kid. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I don't know the names, but it is. Virginia Tech has a great community, and I'll tell you, like a lot of people ask me, with me being born and bred in Alabama, like what made you become a Virginia Tech fan? And I can go into the story one day, but I can tell you, like once I became old enough to like know what I'm doing and interact and stuff, like it's no other community like Virginia Tech community. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's no other, and I'm talking about I'm right here in the middle with Alabama and Auburn and Tennessee all around me. And I've been all of these places and talk to these guys on a daily. The Alabama fans is ready to give up. I'll go ahead and tell you. They've lost 2 games, and they are ready to go and be Colorado fans right now because they can't take it. But Virginia Tech fans, we're showing up every week, and we like, you know what? What else you got for us? Life, we know life gonna keep life. And so yeah, man. I'm very, very, very thankful to be on here with you guys, man. Really look up to you guys and what you guys have been doing. Dwight, from the first time I, you know, met him on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, just spit knowledge, man, and welcoming, you know, a kid from Alabama in just to get some thoughts off. And like I said, a lot of times Dwight is that guy that pulls us back off the ledge when things have gotten so bad. And you know, that 3-7 season that we had with Pride, that first season, I didn't think we was gonna make it, man.
It was tough. It was tough. I get that from my father.
Yeah.
He ain't even kill.
Yeah, licensed therapist for a reason, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, man, I know that was a long spiel, man. But again, I just appreciate you guys.
You're the man, Talley. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys, man, and very happy to be a part of this community.
Well, the community is happy for you, and I speak for a lot of Tech fans in general, man. We appreciate you. And we appreciate you for jumping on. I know you ran it with your boys last night, so we're going to keep watching. Make sure y'all check them out, man. We appreciate you, Talley. I'm sure I'm going to be texting you soon this week and on game day, and then hopefully we jump on the Twitter space after another Tech win 3 in a row. So enjoy your evening, my guy. Be safe down there, man.
Appreciate you, Talley.
Thanks, there he goes, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talley. Talley Bands from Boundary Corner Podcast, man, on the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast show. We're wrapping up, man. This has been a great episode. Danny, I appreciate you. I know we both work and had long days, but I know we had to get this out here. Remember, guys, before we sign off, we're going to do our quick legacy shout outs. But before I do that, make sure you subscribe to us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and also on the Vicktory Life YouTube page. Last episode with Corey Moore, Ty Washington, and Sharon, we got a ton of views, so we appreciate everybody, all the feedback, all the comments, and I think this one's going to get the same kind of love and interest. But I'm going to be quick because this has been a great episode. My legacy shout out, Talley kind of brought him up, is my cousin, Michael Vick. We do legacy shout outs. This is a legacy podcast, and we do legacy shout outs just to honor anybody. It doesn't have to be an athlete. It can be anybody And the reason why I'm shouting out my cousin Mike is because we all know about his story and how he got caught up and, he made some poor choices. But you talk about a legacy to come back and see what he did with the Chiefs, excuse me, with the Eagles and the Steelers and the Jets to finish second MVP voting behind Brady that 1 year in 2010 was remarkable. But what he's doing now, post playing career on Fox, and also if you have not watched it, please watch on Amazon Prime the documentary, The Evolution of the Black Quarterback is remarkable. That's why I want to shout him out because him and his wife Kiafa produced it. They were executive producers. He traveled all last year and the year before that, interviewing Jalen Hurts, Doug Williams, who we all know about him, first ever Black quarterback with Washington to win the Super Bowl. And I'm telling you guys and ladies, it is a phenomenal documentary. You will be educated. And it shows that how much he appreciates his role in being a legendary, iconic quarterback, and he appreciates being a father. And I just think my cousin is remarkable. Regardless of what you think about him, I know he has a lot of love from a lot of fans, but I think what he's doing post-playing career is just as legendary because he's appreciating his gifts and interviewing people and showing love to all these guys we see now, like Patrick Mahomes and Cam Newton and Jaden Daniels and his younger protege, Lamar Jackson. There are so many people that still think he's an icon, but I love the fact that he appreciates it. So that's my legacy shout out, Danny. What you got?
I love it. I absolutely love it, buddy. What a perfect guy for this, and very well said. I'm offended by myself for having not watched Evolution of the Black Quarterback yet, and I will ASAP. I promise you that because it's been on my list for a long time. Just had a lot going on.
It's all good.
There's a football game almost every night now. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, now we got basketball and baseball
exactly,
too.
Exactly. Yeah. But and to see Mike alongside legend, you know how much someone like Doug Williams means to me as a Redskins football team Commanders fan. I have a T-shirt that has Doug Williams on it that says the Grambling Gun from the year he won the Super Bowl, and it's so cool. To see Mike a part of that is amazing. I'm gonna stay in the same vein with mine because I believe there was another Virginia Tech legend there last Thursday night against Boston College, and it was Bruce Smith. And I've got a 78 jersey in my closet that I was wearing during that game. And I'm going to break it out again for this Georgia Tech game because it's homecoming. It's a big one. And it was a gift from my younger brother, Andy, who's also a Hokie, right? Sending love to young Nokes. But Bruce, man, he's long been a great ambassador for Virginia Tech, and obviously one of the greatest pass rushers of all time. He does still hold the sack record all time in the National Football League. We'll see if anybody can approach that in the next 10 years or so. But I love Bruce, man. Anytime I see him on TV, I feel like he lights up a screen. And again, just a great ambassador for the program. So salute to a couple of Hokie legends tonight.
That's a great shout out. And Bruce, man, you know how big I am. And I'm around him, man, when we come back for the spring game. I look at him, I'm like, man, could I have blocked him in my prime? Because he looks like a cyborg. He has long arms and intimidating shoulders like mine. But God bless them both, man. And God bless you, Danny. Another great show, man. And we appreciate all the people that show Vicktory Life and the Vicktory Life movement a lot of love. We have a lot of supporters and we appreciate the feedback and the subscribers. Danny and I, we do this for the love of the game and the love to talk to you guys and interact with guests. So special thanks again to our guests, Mike Barber, David Till, and Talley Bands of Boundary Corner Podcast. 3 great guests. This will run. We're recording this tonight. We'll record and post a YouTube one tomorrow, and SoundCloud and Spotify will be following. So like I say every episode, make sure you guys stay safe. Make sure you continue to love and respect each other. And make sure no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you live a great legacy. I'm Dwight Vick, owner and founder of Vicktory Life, and I'm signing off on behalf of Danny Nokes, my co-host. Thank you, guys.